I am excited. Happy Monday to everybody. It is 11 o'clock. So, top of the morning to you. I don't know why people say that, but it sounds so funny when they say it. Anyway, a few updates that I shared yesterday that I wanted to dive into today and explain a little bit about what they mean so you can understand what it means for you and your nonprofit organization, especially if you have been planning to seek support and for those who are ready to come in. Now, I had to make a decision recently to pivot into who I am serving, but I am still serving who I'm serving right now, but it did in a different capacity. So if you saw my announcement yesterday, Savage Coaching and Consulting is serving organizations that have a revenue of about $1 million to $10 million through strategic planning and also as a fractional COO, right? So that said, those are the services, the main services that are offered to organizations of that size. The reason for that, when an organization is that big, oftentimes the gaps indicate that they need support in that level. So those are the services offered to organizations that are of that level. Now, smaller organization, the best way to work with me is in the Signature Nonprofit Navigator course, which cohort one launched in January. So I reopened it. It's now on my Beacon store, which is the new storefront. And I should update the link because the link did not show up on here. So I'll put the link in the comments. But my Beacons store will have the link to sign up for the Nonprofit Navigator course. It is a course that is evergreen. When I say evergreen, that means like it's always open. It's always going to be open, and you're always going to have the support that you need through that course. And if you are a smaller nonprofit or larger nonprofit, or mid-sized nonprofit, this is the best way to work with me, considering that I also provide hands-on support in there to help you come up with an infrastructure and system that supports your nonprofit organization. So that said, that is how I am supporting smaller organizations that I've been working with because I found that the Nonprofit Navigator course allows you to have a space where you are also strategizing with me. And I'm also adding trainings and resources and templates in that training to support organizations that need that help right now. So again, it is the best way for smaller nonprofits to work with me and to build their systems and infrastructure to get ready for the next level. Now, the Nonprofit Navigator course, I'm going to speak briefly about it so you can understand what is entailed in there. So the Nonprofit Navigator course has 4 modules currently. It is expanding as I'm adding different trainings to it and building it to ensure that you have the tools. Hey, Mackenzie, that you have the tools necessary within that course as a smaller nonprofit so you can build different aspects of your organization, different systems within your organization. So one thing that's very important is that your organization has some type of outreach plan or community engagement plan, which is one of the modules. So you can learn how to deal with that and ensure that you are in a space with your nonprofit organization where you're focusing on that, because a lot of nonprofit organizations tend to focus on some things and not the other things that make a difference. Just like as professionals, one thing we hear is it's all about who you know, like outreach and community engagement, ensure that your organization is able to build recognition. That's why that's a module in there. There's also a marketing module on how to brand and market your nonprofit organization using the tools that you have, how to create standard operating procedures, which are referred to as SOPs, and there's also a bonus module on fundraising. So there are different trainings in there that help you build a stronger nonprofit organization that can actually grow. And that's one thing as a leader of a smaller nonprofit, I want you to realize there are steps for you to take to get to the next level. And I strongly believe that you need to work on these before you start seeking the bigger things. Okay, so that's how I'm still helping organizations that are still in that level. through the Nonprofit Navigator course. And for the Nonprofit Navigator course, there is a Facebook group, Facebook community group where you post your questions, or if you need support, you get answers within 48 business hours of what to do. And if you send me email, you get answers within a few business days as well. So essentially, you get support that you need. Just you're not getting someone that does the work for you. You need the work done, and I'm supporting you get that work done and giving you strategies so you can get that work done faster, which is what smaller organizations need. So you can start using the team that you have and building on the capacity you have. All right. So that's how I'm supporting the smaller nonprofits right now, and I will continue to support them. And there was another announcement, there's strategy sessions. The Precision Strategy Sessions, we renamed it. It's going to retire July 31st, 2025. And the strategy sessions have been a great tool for many nonprofit leaders that need strategies to focus and get work done, right? Get work done intentionally and strategically. Um, we decided to retire the strategy session to make room for other services. So definitely take advantage of booking the strategy sessions as I open the calendar up 2 days a week for you to book strategy sessions and ensure that you have the tools necessary to move forward and actually grow your organization. Okay. So, in terms of the shift that's happening and who we're serving, definitely it is not a situation where smaller nonprofits do not have support anymore. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You'd have the Nonprofit Navigator course, which is the best way, a self-paced course with support from me to assist you, but other services will be closing down. Um, can you book a complimentary consultation? Yes, but I feel like the course is the best way for you to start, especially if you have gaps that prevent you from going to the higher level services or in ways that you can get support. And what else was I going to say? Digital products are still being transferred from Stand Store to Beacon. So if there's a digital product, and not all of them are going to make it. So if there's a digital product that you need on Stand Store, definitely get it right now to make sure that you have your copy and sign up for the newsletter or email list on Beacons. Because if you are receiving emails, you want to continue receiving the emails from me, definitely sign up for the newsletter because then once the transfer is complete, that is what is going to start happening. The emails are going to come from Beacons. And if you sign up for the newsletter, it is double subscribe. So you have to subscribe and confirm in your email that you received that you actually did subscribe. So that is for security reasons to ensure that your email is not rejecting these emails and it's not going to spam. So it's going to be a double confirm situation. So that said, I hope the updates were helpful because I know in the post it left a lot for interpretation. So definitely let me know if you have any questions in the comments about the updates that were made in yesterday's post, as I want to make sure that everybody's questions are addressed and that you understand that just because your nonprofit is a smaller nonprofit does not mean you don't get support continuously. You still get the support that you need, and just in a different capacity. Now, I'm gonna pivot over. I don't want to just pivot into this conversation, but now we're gonna talk about task management versus operational leadership, which is something is very important, especially for organizations that have stability within themselves. Because if you are a nonprofit leader and you're running a stable organization where you have the mid-level management, you have the teams necessary to do the work in your nonprofit organization, right? The teams are busy, the organization is moving forward, but there's one thing that I want to make clear is that busyness is not essentially a growth strategy, right? It's not operational leadership. Task management is going to keep the day-to-day from falling apart, right? So task management, if there's something that needs to be done, people are doing it and things like that. But operational leadership makes sure that the next 6 months or the next 5 years are being built intentionally. And that's the key difference. So there's one where you're just managing the day to day, and there's another one that looks ahead and starts thinking about, okay, does this contribute to the next 6 months or next 5 years? And are we building on it? Right. So when you're managing tasks, your team is consistently checking off immediate deliverables. Like, did we do this? Did we do this? Okay, did we make sure we called this person? Did we reply to this email? Right? All these immediate deliverables are being addressed. They're being checked off the list, right? Did we get the grant report submitted? Did we host the event? Did we confirm the vendors for this event, right? Did we send the donor thank you letters? All these different tasks. Again, the nomenclature, the name, the term tells you exactly what it is, right? It's managing task. But when you're leading an operation, you're building a machine that makes those deliverables happen smoothly, predictably, and without, like, for lack of better terms, without having a crisis on your hands, where these tasks are happening in a way that makes sense, right? There is a procedure and a process in place to make sure that these tasks are completed and it's being done in a way that's predictable. In a task managed organization, right? Success will depend on systems. I'm sorry, success would depend on people remembering, right? It will depend on people remembering, did I do this? Which is not okay. Okay, because remember, I talk about reactivity versus being active, an active participant and an intentional participant. So when an organization is task managed, then the team tends to focus on remembering what to do or having a list or chasing and creating. But I want you to start pivoting and shifting your organization to be operationally led, right? An organization where success depends on systems and not stress, where the systems are what predict whether or not you'll be able to get the work done, or if you have the tools necessary, the capacity to do the work. Right. And in a task management organization, when it's running the show, things that can happen is the staff is scrambling 2 days, right? 2 days before a funder deadline because nobody mapped milestones, right? There were no milestones mapped. There was no tracking of the activities. The program managers are constantly reinventing processes because there's no standard operating procedures that exist to ensure that these things are happening in a way that is smooth, right? And department meetings are turning into status updates. Department meetings are supposed to be a space for decision making, right? Where people exchange ideas and come to a consensus about what to do next, right? They're not supposed to be status updates. Like there's supposed to be a process to make sure that every department is abreast of what's happening in the organization, and the department meeting should not be overtaken by status updates, right? So that's what happens in a task managed organization. Now, leadership will depend most of the time. Most of its time, they will spend most of their time answering questions that should already have been clear before. And that's what happens when your organization is really just managing tasks, right? A lot of organization is doing are doing that, and I'm not gonna say there's nothing wrong with it. It is more common than you think, right? But is that where you want to reside? Possibly not. So growth is going to feel like a heavy lift, right? Like you're basically the gorilla's eating more and getting heavier on your back. You don't want that. For some reason, there's this thing with me and gorillas on your back. But the gorilla is eating more bananas and getting heavier. So you do not want it to feel like a heavier load than it needs to be. So operational leadership, what you want to occur is that you want grant deadlines to be mapped out, right? You know when a grant deadline is coming up, you have milestones assigned and tracking across departments. Hey, was this done? Was this done? Was this done? So when the deadline for this grant comes through, it's easier to come together and actually have a cohesive application to submit and meet the deadline like early. because too many organizations are submitting their grants like a few hours before or just a few minutes before the deadline, right? And organization that has true operational leadership, their programs will launch and follow a defined standard operating procedures, not emails flying back and forth. Okay, we should do this. This didn't work. We should do this. No, the standard operating procedure is clear and really walking you through what is next and ensuring that the organization knows exactly what to do when the program launches, right? The staff onboarding is a standardized experience where it's going to build loyalty and productivity immediately within the new team members and within the existing team members, right? And leaders are meeting to solve problems, approve next phases, and check progress against strategic KPIs. Okay, now that's something that you want in your organization. You do not want to be tracking like or chasing status updates because that doesn't make sense. So I want you to really like come to terms with changing how you operate to ensure that there is some type of operational sense within your organization so it's not going around like not working properly. Now, and for those, because there was a question that I saw for those that don't know what KPI stands for, it means key performance indicators. So when you are leading an organization, like these indicators will show you how things are progressing within your organization. So KPIs, I remember, because then in business, I used to be a social media manager like maybe 5, 6 years ago, right? So KPIs, like I had clients that wanted to grow their audience and stuff like on Instagram. Instagram was different then. So KPIs that were tracked, we looked at the email list subscribers, like the followers and things like that. These are different indicators that were paid attention to ensure like they were hitting their goals, right? So in terms of the nonprofit, you need to look at what strategic KPIs would be indicators that you are making progress. Okay. Now, the growth of your organization, like the weight of it, it's going to spread across the organization because the structure was designed to handle that growth. And that's where I want you to come, like the realization I want you to come to. You need to build a structure and infrastructure that is able to handle the growth of the organization. And I talk about capacity building a lot because if you are growing and your infrastructure does not support growing the capacity of your organization when things are growing and they're moving fast, it's going to be hard for you to actually meet any expectations because um, your organization's going to collapse like under the weight of the growth that's happening. You may be growing in terms of the people that you're able to bring on and the teams that you are bringing in, but your organization wasn't ready for it. So you need to have a leadership or operational system that supports the growth that you are trying to accomplish. Okay, operational leadership doesn't just protect the organization's current programs, right? It prepares the organization to take on new opportunities without burning out the team or compromising the mission because you're being true to the current capacity of the organization and you're not trying to do everything and everything at once, okay? So without operational leadership, every growth spurt will feel like a bigger gamble because you weren't prepared for it. You're depending on people to make efforts that are beyond their scope of work, people on your team having some goodwill. Oh, yeah, we can do this. We'll do it for free. We'll volunteer our time. You're depending on that stuff, but it's not guaranteed that it will happen or last minute problem solving to get across the finish line, which does not make sense. And honestly, the bigger you grow, the more dangerous that becomes because that, again, it's not guaranteed and you are relying on hope that people will be nice for things to happen. So as you get bigger, you need to prepare and have some type of operational stability and leadership within your organization to ensure that you are supporting your growth. Okay. So for example, at 500,000, let me put my password on this computer. At $500,000 in revenue, an organization usually can survive on the hustle. Because then now you have to work numbers around and make sure like things are getting done. Like, okay, we're gonna get this done, right? So you can survive on the hustle. But when you get to 2 million, like hustle without systems, it becomes a liability because now there's too much money floating for you to depend on just like the hustle life, okay? To do things that you need to do. That is too much money at risk. It is a liability because if you think about the different financial reports or whatnot that you have to do, that's too much risk, okay? So at 5 million, I want you to think about it different levels. Oh my God, why is this password not working? There we go. So at 5 million, it also becomes a risk to the funding relationships that you have in your reputation because now they don't trust you to have some type of sustainability or program in place to support the financial support you're getting, right? Funders, they don't just want to look at your outcomes when you're at a certain level. They want to look at your infrastructure because they notice when you miss a deadline. Okay. They're going to notice when reports are late or sloppy because at that level of financial like support, you should be getting a professional to do these things, right? You should have systems in place to ensure that they're being done properly. They're going to notice when your team seems overwhelmed or disorganized behind the scenes because again, you should not be having these problems. These problems were for the hustle life. And at a certain level, you are growing. You should build your operational systems as well to ensure it supports the growth that you are needing. So, according to the Bridgespan Group, nonprofits that invest in operational leadership and systems actually are 30 more percent likely to meet or exceed their growth target. So operational leadership is very important in ensuring the success of an organization and ensuring that it's able to grow and meet its targets. So operational leadership is the difference between winning a $1 million grant and being ready to execute it without feeling scattered. Okay. Now, there is the difference between 20% staff turnover and 80% staff turnover. These are other things I want you to consider. Like the staff turnover, are they leaving because there's also an operational gap that exists within the organization? It's a difference between chasing fires and building the fireproof structure your mission deserves, because at one point, you should have a clear structure that prevents all these like unexpected things to occur. You should be fireproof, right? And it's not about adding more management layers because when you are growing, you're tempted to have layers of management to buffer the level of work that you're doing as the leader of the organization. It's not having more management layers. It is making sure there is operational clarity. Okay. Operational clarity that makes smart work possible. Because you may have that mid-level management, right? And that high level management team and stuff like that. But if there's no operational clarity where everybody's just doing everything and nothing makes sense, no clear roles, no clear priorities, no clear system, no clear accountability system, right? It becomes a problem because when operational leadership is in place, your managers are not just running their programs, they're active stewards of the organization's mission, okay, through operational decisions that they make, because they understand that running the program well is necessary, but building the internal systems that support the programs at scale is a real win. Because if they're not able to do that because your organization lacks the operational leadership necessary to support the programs, then it's going to be difficult for the mid-level management or any level of management to do their jobs efficiently. So your team should not be surviving on any sort of Superman cape or Superwoman cape energy, right? They don't need another manager in the whole um, organizational chart, right? You need some type of operational leadership embedded at every level of execution. Because one thing that happens if you're serious about building a nonprofit that does not just survive the next 18 months, but does really well over the next decade, you cannot afford to confuse motion with movement, because motion does not mean that you're moving in the right direction. Because you can be busy but not doing a darn thing. Okay. Because then a lot of people are busy, and one example I have, sometimes some people are talking to me, they talk to say nothing. Because you ask them a question, they talk, 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 never answer the question. The same thing with staying busy. You may be busy doing work, doing work, doing work, but you never move closer to your goal. So motion does not equate movement. And that's something I want you to remember. That busy does not scale. Systems help an organization and scale, helps a corporation scale. So the organizations or corporation that realize this now will be the ones that everyone else is trying to catch up to 5 years from now. And my job is not to convince organizations that are growing or that want to grow that this is something that they need, right? Because, like, when we think about it, if you are in a position of leadership, you should be able to identify the gaps that exist within your organization or corporation and start moving accordingly, right? So I want you to ask yourself, which future are you actually building for your organization? And go from there. So with that said, definitely check the Beacon store and also my website. I will put my website in the comments on Facebook. If you're on Instagram, just make sure you check the link in my bio. But my website is savjconsulting.com, Savage Consulting, that's how I pronounce it. And definitely you'll learn more about the services. You can apply for fractional COO support or apply for strategic planning engagement. If you're looking to book a strategy session, you can definitely click on the Stancer link, which is still open, and book one. But definitely I want you to start thinking about the moves that need to occur within your organization to ensure success. But with that said, I am going to go. And if you have any questions, definitely drop them in the comments. I look forward to hearing from you and hope you have an amazing Monday and week. Bye, y'all.